Our next presenter is Keshav. Uh, Keshav is going to be, his presentation is titled The Perspective Less Talked About and Why. Uh, he will be talking about how he has come to where he is, from diagnosis, not because of defects, but positives initially, to the places where neurotypicals wanted to see him like him, wanted to be like him. A story to show the power of right supportive strength-based environment and the challenges faced. Keshav is a growing artist and a thinker. He makes comics for now, along with illustrations that tickle the gush of creativity within him.
So, first of all, like I was very impressed and also humbled seeing so many others talk before me, and mine is again another little presentation on how I have looked at it. Hope it helps people. So this first slide, what you can see is actually a flyer which I had created for a firm. They had asked me to create something that describes me, and when I looked on internet, I found like all of them are printed. So I decided, why not make it in a way that stays with them for longest time as an impact, which when they go through, they realize, oh, that was a hand made one. So that's how I actually created this. Feel free to go through each of them. I will not be describing them right now. You will have few of my works towards the end of the presentation. So this kind of style, from where it came, is because when I was in my school, I started having issues with learning. I couldn't really pay attention for as long as the teacher wanted me to. So when the teacher was explaining A and he or she went to B, I was still stuck in A, thinking of the different A's that could be formed. So when the teacher went to C, I was still trying to understand A and B together. So that kind of pace really messed my pace compared to other students. And yes, it had many challenges. So that's when actually I created a method that helped me to actually catch up, not to a very good extent, but to a good extent of being able to come to college here. So I started combining the images that I saw in my head to remember. So this is a technique called sketchnoting, where you actually get the sketching and notes together. And for me, I also combine other memory techniques to start how to memorize this image. So I'll share more on this technique as I go later, but this is a story behind this small flyer I've made. So this slide deck is divided into three parts. One is how in school I was, then how I was in high school, and my current experience at college. So it has both the positives and the negative, not the negative, I would say, challenges that I've faced and I'm facing. So on the right side, always you can see some of the creations that I had made, which are kind of self-explanatory, but feel free to interrupt me now or towards the end so that I could explain about any of them. So traits of giftedness in multiple areas. So for me, the traits that I had, which really stood out compared to other classmates of mine, which was around 120 of us, it was that I was able to pick up art very quickly and also understand music in a very intuitive way, and also pick up dance in a very quick way. So this helped me a lot to gain a sense of identity and a purpose, and teachers encouraged me a lot, and I got to do a lot more things which will come to me eventually later in high school and college. And I believe I must separate this identity of me as Keshav here, but rather you would look at an autistic here. So because most of my whatever you'll see here is I credit the traits of autism that I have. So and like along with that, I say the environment, the peer support, and the teachers also. So that played a very big role for me, and I can say for sure that without their support, I wouldn't be as successful as I am now. Uh, At high school, along with the positive traits, learning issues and self-esteem issues started. So that's when I really started facing the learning issues that I had described earlier. So I couldn't pay attention the same way how people want, even though I was like doing extremely well when it came to the extracurricular side, able to like as you had seen in the flyer, that able to teach 300 people dance at a time. So how the previous presenter brother had explained, like that you I and I've noticed in other leaders also, we somehow are able to address a large number of crowd than one-to-one conversations. I don't know the technical side of it, but there is some beautiful phenomenon happening here. So I could I remember even people who are doing their PhD opposite to me, who are learning dance from me. And this was the moment when my classmates started coming and telling me that, Keshav, how can I be like you? And I wish I knew the answer was, please get autism. So, but I didn't know then. And I was also confused. And as the previous presenter said, we just knew we were different, but we didn't know how. So as I share all this, it might feel that, okay, I was that bubbly kind of creative person who was busy conversing and making a lot of friends. No, it was not like that. Like, you could say, split personality is not the medical term, but just in general, I mean to say, when it came to activities, I went all through there, and just when the activity got over, without wanting any praise or anything, I just like disappeared from the scene. I even didn't write my name below the images to let people know that it's me who drew it. So I used to give it off to my friend and tell, you all go and show the teacher. You all go and present it, because I just hated recognition. But to be honest, again, like any other human, I needed validation. But I don't know. These things are kind of fishy here. So these two issues started coming, and the self-esteem issues part actually started because I had these issues, and this is where first time I heard the term of these labels like autism and ADHD. So for me, how I actually came across them was I started struggling a lot, and I started creating my own methods to cope up, like creating this learning method of using images. So instead of memorizing the entire question and answer, which expanded up to 2 pages, what I did was I couldn't memorize it, and not every logic really could sit in my head. So I converted that into an image, which you'll see later again towards the end of the slide deck. Uh, and that image was what I used to remember. So that image sometimes had my own kind of logic. Some of them used to be surreal. Some of them I create a video in my head. So one disadvantage is the videos, I used to forget them immediately after the unit test. And when it came for the half yearlies, I had to again make a new video because I didn't know how to document videos then. So while checking out all this, I checked on like on internet, like who else does this? Are there more people? But surely, uh, and I came to know about another autism advocate called Temple Grandin, and who had written a book called Thinking in Pictures. And her first chapter was freely uploaded on her website, where I came to know, and I had a big deja vu, because before that, what articles I had read this, and what I got attracted to was, are there any disadvantages of being too creative? And there were some blogs written on it, and I went through those traits. And now when I read this Temple Grandin's book and come to know about labels like autism, all these disadvantages of excess creativity, these same number of the traits were actually present on there as you could say the pointers for diagnosis. So that was a very strange thing, and I kind of realized that the label is, in a way, somewhere it does have issues, because it was identified majorly as a fault. Where the same thing, and there's a book also which is called Wired to Create, which I stumbled upon during this phase of self-doubt, which is by a psychologist called Scott Berry Kaufman, and he has compiled from past history all the most creative people for what common traits you have in common. And the shocking thing that you will realize that all the 10 traits that are mentioned are the traits which are used for diagnosing us. So this is a big strange parallel. So I guess all we need is the right environment. And yes, I will never deny the challenges. And as I share the next phases, you will realize I do have challenges, but the narrative, I think there's a lot of hope also. So at college, challenges and fitting in along with positive traits. So as I said, environment and people played a big role for me to really understand the good side of me, or the positive side of me, the talented side of me. And one big issue that happened for me is after I came after high school, I kind of lived in a very small world, a world which is based on very proper ethics and values, where you're supposed to be kind and be giving and be a gentle person. And for me, someone who actually memorizes social interaction, which I realized now, I kind of started having this black and white kind of thinking, realized that if you be kind, people will be kind to you. So in college, all of that got shattered because this institution, which actually was, it was away from all internet and distractions, and it was like you didn't have any gadget allowance and all of it. And it was heavily focused on talents and abilities of yours, and from forming relationships to close friendships. Like, it is a very strict Gurukula kind of system. So this transition for me has been really tough, and I'm still going through the transition. And I have faced a lot of challenges in really understanding the, I would label saying the invisible language, where people, when they communicate to you, they are saying something, but actually sometimes they mean different. And the context, you could at least create 5 outcomes of it in every sentence most of the times. So, for example, if a friend of mine or a classmate of mine would say, "Hey Keshav, you drew this art really nice. Like, it looks really nice. And like, how did you do it?" And I just look at him and say that, "Yeah, I did it like this." And since he's praising me, I'll tell him, "Thank you so much." And I'll say, "I would love to see your art too." And I look down and continue. Now, I would find this as a very kind gesture which I did, but for the other person, it was a very rude thing that I did. Sometimes it's the other person wants to start a conversation with you, a boy or a girl, or I do not understand it. So I'm still trying to decode, and I think it's going to be a lifelong journey to decode. But yeah, like, I can keep elaborating, but I think I'll miss the slides which are ahead, which are kind of explaining these little things. So I'll move on to the next one. So this, you could say, the invisible language is the biggest issue that I'm having right now, and realizing I try to be good all the time, but I have certain selfishness in me which I should learn to embrace, because we need to learn to survive. So, conclusion. So I'm still very young, and I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm immature in many ways, but there are some lessons that I've learned here, and which I feel are not going to change for a while. So those are here. That one thing I realized, that uh, life never gets easy. Always when I think that I've learned something, I always thought, okay, now this formula is cracked in my mind. I have learned and understood this logic of how life works. I'm hit again by a rock where I feel like a child again. So I've realized that even though how talented I am, I must just be like a child and always have my skin in the game of be ready to embrace the next hit. And I realized there's no one way. So as I said, my school and high school had been a very close system, where you had a black and white kind of thinking. If you serve people, you be kind to them, you're labeled as a good person. But it doesn't work like that. If you help, so like in the real world, when you help so much, people instead take you to be a person who's kind of fishy, because no one does that. So I'm kind of learning that there are no one way. Sometimes you have to prioritize yourself, and there are no rules but what works. So there's a series called OA which I love. It's my favorite. And there's a statement said that there is no black and white. It's only what a man can bear. So I think society has rules to live and survive together. But to be honest, we are all trying to make so like philosophically speaking, the bright side and the dark side to go ahead in life. And the last part, which I'm still learning and I have lots to learn, there's power of compound interest. So I realized we as neurodivergents, um, in general, do not actually get the dopamine, or you could say the happy chemicals, through people interaction. I believe neurotypicals generally get this happiness and the happy chemicals, and by being creative when it comes to people and interactions. I believe neurodivergence, we generally get it through our special interests. And while approaching these special interests, sometimes what happens is we get too attached to the end goal, sometimes rather than the process. And we want to see that in that very day possible. That kind of breaks us out of the discipline. And anyway, we have issues with keeping track of the time, the numbers. So I'm trying to really understand and get it into action, that sometimes there's a beauty in following discipline. There's a beauty in being being bored or just not expecting something different every time. There's a beauty in just conforming and not being creative. There's a beauty in just existing like a neurotypical also sometimes, like not always trying to keep to your special interest, but also try to see them as a specimen and try to interact and see what they have, what and how they function. It's tiring, but I'm also still starting to go. But I kind of, as an artist, I just realize everything has its own speck of beauty, and I'm just trying to taste or understand what's here. So just few more artworks, which are a quick glance. You could ask me questions later. I would not describe them more. Maybe I'm going beyond time. So I do blogging and podcasting. But again, I will say here that it's not easy and I'm very inconsistent. But this is some of my attempts that I've made, which I'm proud of myself. So how I took notes in classes, this is how. So this is you can see the description below. And I also create cartoons. So this is with a person, mom who has autism and her child also has. And I created cartoons and like how they have labeled us based on majorly our negative traits that we try to mock, and the people saying that you too have the same issues in a very light satirical way. I also help in making the book covers and illustrating inside them while working with startup. Thank you. So this is it from my end, and hope some of these things did inspire you all, and let's keep learning together.
Thank you so much, Keshav.